you just got to do it, right? Yes.
Good.
I am. How about you? Do I have any time?
We're going to hold off just a couple minutes. We have Councilwoman Pontieri coming in a couple minutes. She's in the parking lot, so we're just going to wait a few minutes and then get started.
Are you going to do the color?
Yeah. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. We're going to go ahead and call this joint workshop of the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners and the City of Palm Coast City Council. We'll call this workshop to order. It is Wednesday, August 28th, 2024. It is 5:02 p.m. If everybody could stand for the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice.
And at this time, we'll take a brief moment of silence. This is a normal part in our agenda. A moment of prayer, meditation, individual silence just to honor our men and women in the military for protecting us home and abroad, and our local first responders. All right, thank you. And again, welcome everybody. We have three different discussions for today's agenda. We're going to start off with the Humane Society discussion. We're going to transition into a discussion on traffic impacts on State Road 100 at Seminole Woods Boulevard. And then finally, a discussion on law enforcement impact fees. If it's okay with everybody, we'll do public comment after each one of those three instead of just one public comment at the end, if that's okay. We do have a presentation from our county administrator, but at this time, I'd like to do a roll call. So if I could start off on my left with Councilwoman Pontieri, just state your name and position. Thank you.
Teresa Pontieri, District 2 City Council.
David Alpha, Mayor of Palm Coast.
Leanne Pennington, County Commissioner, District 4.
Andy Dance, County Commission Chair.
Greg Hansen, County Commission, District 2.
Dave Sullivan, County Commissioner, District 3.
Donald O'Brien, County Commissioner, District 5.
All right, great, thank you. So with the Humane Society discussion, we'll go ahead with the presentation, and that'll be from Ms. Heidi Petito, our County Administrator.
Well, good evening, and thank you all for being here. Just put together a quick presentation to go over the topics for tonight. So here's a look at tonight's agenda, looking at the Humane Society as the first discussion topic, followed by the State Road 100 traffic coordination efforts, and then followed by law enforcement system impact fee discussion. So, as you all know, the Flagler Humane Society is a Florida nonprofit corporation. The county or the city does not have immediate oversight over them. They are a private entity. They do have an 8-person board of directors. They also have an executive director and staff. Looking at their website, it is kind of separated out into like management and administration, which does include the medical kennel, the cattery, maintenance on the facility, as well as adoption personnel. And then it appears that there's a separate arm which really pertains to animal control services and the collection of stray animals. Right now, the local governments all have contracts in place with the Flagler Humane Society. Those contracts all expire in September of 2025. So taking a look at the contracts that are in place right now, most cities and the county have 2 services that they receive. They have animal control, which is to pick up the stray or loose animals, and then we also pay for animal shelter services. The city of Palm Coast has their own animal control, therefore they only pay for animal shelter services. This is a look at how much money is allocated either in the budget or what's spelled out in their contract. When you look at all of the local contracts, it's approximately $416,000 that goes into the Humane Society as part of their revenue. We've all heard some perceived public concerns, whether it's numerous emails and letters that were received. I know that we've had, and I had seen that the city of Palm Coast had experienced residents appearing before both of our boards under public comments. And some of them may be perceived public concerns, but not everybody who came to the boards were here for a complaint. There were a lot of pros and cons that we had heard from a lot of different people. But in looking at some of the concerns, they were more geared towards maybe lack of oversight of the facility, treatment of animals, and then volunteers that had been terminated, whether it was with or without cause. I think that maybe there might be a path moving forward through maybe either our contract negotiations, which will be up next year. We do have a CPI contract increase, which is scheduled to happen before October of this year. But perhaps before we renew the contract next year, or maybe prior to that, if we have discussions with their board and their executive director, maybe there could be room for some local government oversight. Maybe we can discuss kind of future capital plans and identify ways that we can improve the facility. And then maybe there's room for participation with the board of directors. I know that serving on a board, I serve on 2. I serve on SMA Healthcare as well as FGUA, which is Florida Government Utility Authority. I know that our counterparts in Palm Coast also serve on various boards of nonprofit organizations. So I don't think it would be out of line for that, but I'll probably pause here and let you guys discuss it.
Yes, sir.
Did you want to?
Well, I was just going to say, I think at this point, we've got kind of an outline of some of the points that have been brought forward that we can expand on. I also want to make sure we have time to bring up Amy from the Humane Society for discussion. So this is kind of new territory with us working together on this. So if there was comments on these 3 items, I think, it'd be appropriate now if you had something to add, Commissioner O'Brien.
Well, mine was more just clarification on
ahead.
some of the information. Could you go back to a couple slides, Heidi, to the numbers? So, okay, that one. So the difference between us and we don't have animal control services, any staff. We outsource everything or outsource everything to the shelter, to
Correct.
the Humane Society.
Correct.
right?
Ourselves, the city of Benel and Flagler Beach.
Yeah.
We don't have our own animal control, so we contract with them to provide those services.
So that 284 is the services that we've paid for by contract, itemized, whatever it gets done, whether it's sheltering or animal control activities in the in the unincorporated areas, correct?
It's what we have currently in our budget. I think when I looked at the actuals for last year, I think we spent somewhere around 257,000.
Okay.
So we anticipate CPI increases, and then it really goes by the call volume. So it's hard to predict the actual true cost because it's based on the number of animals that they capture and have to house.
So then I guess the other part of my question is for city staff, the shelter services budget is 90,000. Is there a contract there also? And what is your budget amount, if you have an idea, for your animal control side, like your FTEs there, and what's your expense there? I'm just trying to get a understanding of scale and scope between the city and the county in terms of our budget and expenses.
Good evening, Jason DiLorenzo, Chief of Staff. We have 3 animal control officers full-time, 1 animal control technician, and obviously all the equipment and overhead to operate that. I don't have that broken out. It's all as part of the code enforcement budget.
So part of code enforcement? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. I would just be curious how that relates to, obviously, that sounds like it's a lot more money than the $284,000 we're spending, so just trying to understand that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just to follow
Commissioner
up
Sullivan?
on the city of Palm Coast, the $90,000 is basically animal control focused? Shelter. Or shelter?
Sheltering.
Okay, so that just goes to the Humane Society to help them run the facility?
On a per animal basis.
Okay. All right.
Any other thoughts?
Not used to have to turning a mic on. I don't have any questions, but as far as I know, on the last slide, a topic appeared to be local government oversight. I think something to consider for these 2 boards is to perhaps have a liaison from both the City of Palm Coast and the BOCC on the board of directors for the Flagler County Humane Society in the case that the relationships contractually do not change. If we're really going to, we're paying a lot of money for the service. I think that it's important that we have some oversight. I don't know what that oversight looks like right now. I know from my perspective, until a lot of these issues were brought to light, overlooking the Flagler Humane Society was really not something discussed by our board or staff at all, to my knowledge anyways. So I think having a liaison on the board of directors is a good way to stay involved and make sure we can either vet some of these things that have been brought forward or just make sure we're providing a good service that we're paying for in the future.
Yes, Mayor Alphen.
If I may, mine are more in the form of questions. During this presentation, will there be any reference to the history in terms of the facility and when it was first created, how big it is, if it's been changed, number 1, and then number 2, are there currently any inspection requirements done as a result of the contract or requirements of the state? Those are just questions to be answered at some point in time.
All right, I think when we bring Amy up, we'll have her talk
Okay.
to those. And I think one of the questions I remember too was fiscal oversight. So I guess, is there, when we write language for the new contract, what do you think would be potential additional language so that based on other nonprofits or how we would ensure that there could be oversight for our taxpayer funds that are going toward it?
Chairman, the contract has in it reporting requirements where they break down the number of animals that have come in from our jurisdiction. And I can't remember if it's monthly or quarterly, but there are regular reports that they submit to us so that we know that we're being charged the appropriate amount.
Okay, and I guess as far as the overall operations, would we be named so that we could have additional copies of their audit sent to us, or do we become a party of that process?
You know, off the top of my head, I don't know, but we can look into that.
Okay. All right. I guess at this point, yes, sir.
Just one other thing, I was looking around the state, and some counties let the sheriff's department do the animal pickup, the animal control. The sheriff's department runs that. I don't know how successful that is. The sheriff was willing to consider that. That has nothing to do with the shelter, but it's some counties let the sheriff's department actually do the animal control part of it. Just a thought.
Well, I know Chief is here today, so we can call him up in a little bit too. But did I see Amy? Is Amy here? Okay, thank you. I was looking in the back. If you would come, do you mind coming up?
Mr. Chair, one other question while
Yes,
this is
sir.
coming up. So the animal control function for the county, is that done by the Humane Society? Yes,
Yes.
they're folks, okay.
Yes, and we also have a ranch deputy who works for the sheriff who works on livestock type of cases. But the regular dog, cat neglect, we have officers that are sworn in by the county judge and work on our behalf to enforce our code, employed by the Humane Society.
So that's our process as opposed to the city that have their FTs directly on staff.
Correct.
Okay. Mhm. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, if you could just come up, state your name.
Hey, I'm Amy Caratenuto. I'm the Executive Director of Flagler Humane Society.
Okay, great. So you heard some of the comments. So if you could, for Mayor Alphen, at least talk a little bit about the history of the facility, inspection requirements from the state, and then after that, we'll talk a little bit about some of the other concepts or ideas we've talked about, which might be part of the upcoming new contract for 2025.
Sure. So thank you to the commissioners who have come to visit the shelter. I think almost everybody has come to the shelter or at least been invited to come to the shelter. So as far as the history of the shelter, Flagler Humane Society was formed in 1980. We've had contracts, when the shelter was built in 1982, there's been contracts with Bunnell, Flagler Beach, unincorporated county, and Palm Coast ever since. So we've been contracting with each other for 42 years. The building that we're in now, we moved into in 2004. So it's starting to show a little wear and tear for sure. And we have outgrown it. We do the best we can to, offices become cages, and we have animals just about everywhere. Those of you that came by today saw that right now we not only have dogs and cats, we have snakes, tortoises, birds, goats, pigs, strange lizards. We have just about every species at the shelter right now. We are subject to inspections. Every year DBPR comes. We also are subject to inspection by DEA. So we are, there's oversight for sure. And we have no problem sharing everything. If, like Sean said, every month when we turn in our invoice, there's a breakdown of how many animals have come in. I'm fine with also sharing our P&L that at that point per month. We have absolutely nothing to hide. We provide these services, like for the city of Palm Coast, we lose a lot of money on that contract. It costs so much more than $90,000 to take care of the animals that come from the city. I've got a breakdown, which I can turn in. I've got a breakdown of what it costs us to take care of the animals. And when you break down all of the vaccines, the surgery, the daily care, everything, the cat costs by the time they get adopted, the average length of stay is in here as well. So by the time a cat gets adopted, our average cost is a little over $300. And with dogs, it's closer to $500. So we lose money on that Palm Coast contract for sure. Let's see, what else had you asked?
Well, I think part of it, what you've addressed, which was your thoughts too on the open seat on the board of directors. You answered a little bit about, and Sean did on the oversight on the audits. And I guess the other one would be about a capital campaign, if you had been working on one, or, because I think from my standpoint, the glaring elephant in the room is
We need more
expansion.
space, yes.
So I don't know if you've been setting aside funds for a capital campaign, or how you see, a capital campaign working.
We have some funds set aside. It's nowhere near enough to build, to add on to the facility. We do have some funds in an investment account with David Fowler, but as far as a capital campaign, we haven't started anything yet. We have been looking at the property both to the north of us and to the south of us, and then also looking at how we might better use the property that we're in. Perhaps we can rearrange play yards and such. So we would love to expand. It's just, it would take a lot of capital. Shelters are very expensive to build. I think people are misinformed when they think that, you can just put up a metal building or some kennels and throw animals in it. Shelters are very expensive to build. It's crazy plumbing underground. You think every kennel needs a drain. The interior walls need to be concrete block. The flooring needs to be a poured epoxy. The ventilation needs to be like a hospital. So building a shelter, the Orange County right now is working on building a new shelter, and obviously Orange County is bigger than us, but I know their budget for their new shelter is between $80 and $100 million. So I know there's talk of, government-run shelters, and I would hate to see it done unless it was done right. If it could be done better than what we're doing, I think our staff would welcome that. We want what's best for the animals. But a kennel in somebody's backyard does not a shelter make. So please, we've either got to do this right or not do it at all.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
I do.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. So how many animal officers are there currently?
We have 2 full-time,
And what are the hours that they do coverage?
24 hours a day, actually. At night, after closing, it's just emergency basis only, but we do provide coverage 24/7, holidays included.
So is there a requirement that they go out, or is it 24 hours only if emergency? I guess that's what you're saying for the 2.
During the day, we respond to every call that comes in. Our lead officer is here tonight, so if there's specific questions, she might be able to answer them better. But we do provide for emergencies 24 hours a day.
And has the DEA ever inspected? I know that you said they have the ability, but have they?
I think it's been many, many years since DEA has come, but DBPR, Department of Business and Professional Regulations, comes every year.
What do they inspect? Your books or the kennel
Mostly
itself?
the medical, our controlled drugs. So that's mostly the medical. But again, we are an open book. Anybody can, if you come and ask for a tour, we'll give you a tour.
And so the 2 full-time range between the county, Bunnell, and Flagler Beach?
Yes.
Okay, and then so our 285 goes towards the 2 full-time and per animal?
Yes, and there's also the county rebate, the $25 spay-neuter rebate.
Okay, and then, I'm sorry, I remember reading it, I didn't bring it. How many animals do you pick up yearly out of the unincorporated county estimate?
I've got that buried in here. Do you have it in your head? I know total per year, we're getting about 2,600, but I can give you the numbers. I've got them.
Yeah, because then I'd like to figure out cat, dog, snake.
Yeah, I can definitely give you like each city broken down as whether they're stray, owner surrender. I can give you all that. I just don't have it in my brain.
Anybody else?
I have a couple questions. Thank you. How much over capacity would you say you all are right now?
Well, on paper, we have 50.
Now's not a good one because they just got all 35 of those.
Yeah, really, yes. Yeah, if we just count dogs and cats, because the tortoises and the snakes and, but we have 56 kennels, and what do we have, 90-some dogs right now? And with the cat room, we have colony rooms for the cats, so they fit in a little bit easier. I'd say we're just slightly over capacity with cats right
So
now.
with dogs, you're almost 100% over capacity.
Almost. But we find creative ways, the offices become kennels and the lobby is so that also helps showcase the animals too. When there's dogs in the lobby behind the front desk, they get adopted faster because they're seen. So it's, it makes it a little bit trickier to take care of them with having animals everywhere, but it also helps get them adopted.
And then do you all perform background checks on employees and volunteers?
Not a true background check, no.
What do you mean by that, not a true background check?
Well, we have them fill out an application or bring in resume, and there's not a paid background check that we do. No, we just kind of look into, I might call a former boss or that kind of thing.
So there's no criminal background check that's done?
I might look into the arrest records, but not like a paid background check. But
Gotcha, okay.
And we will hire somebody with a background, though. If there's a background, we'll give people a second chance, just like we give the dogs and cats a second chance. So as long as I don't think we've never hired anybody that had like a history of animal issues. But if somebody's got a DUI or something, we'll still look into hiring them.
And then my last question, and this might be more appropriate for staff, is there any way to put any type of impact fee towards the building of a new shelter? And if we don't have that answer now, can we get that, look into that? Because I just don't know what type of impact fee that could be contributed or a contribution from.
Is there an answer?
Do we have an answer?
What I'm hearing is that it may be possible, but we would need to look into it and get you an answer.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Amy.
Yes, sir. Commissioner O'Brien.
So, Amy, in terms of the 2 FTEs that you have, what do you need?
What do we?
Well, in other words, the city has 3 FTE plus a technician, from what I heard. So you have 2.
I think we're okay with our 2. Katie might beg to differ. When she's working 5 nights in a row.
24/7, that's an issue.
She's fine. She's fine.
Again, I'm just trying to understand. I'm trying to understand volume and pressures and all that.
I think we're okay at this point. The one of the good things about having everything under one roof is, most recently we had this one case where we assisted the sheriff's department on a confiscation. On the days when the workload is really high, they can borrow from our animal care staff or we can help each other so that we are able to work with just the 2.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Just to make it clear to some people, but total number of employees and volunteers it takes to run the shelter on a daily basis and weekly basis, I think you told me when I was out there that there were like 40, but I don't know what that number relates to.
Well, we have 47 paid staff. A little over a third of those paid staff are part-time, so probably averages out to about 40. That includes our thrift store, which is, our thrift store brings in a lot of our income. Our thrift store is posed to make over $650,000 this year, so thank goodness for that. So 8 staff work at our thrift store. Our medical team, the adoption team, the animal care team. So 47, including part-times, and then probably about 100 active volunteers. Some of them do outreach. Everybody's probably seen our volunteers at PetSmart and that kind of thing, and that's a huge help. We couldn't do it without our good volunteers.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I was just going to talk. A big issue out in District 4, because it is very far out there to begin with, is getting an animal control response, it seems to be. So I do get a lot of emails about, and that's what I think we're asking, is it enough officers to cover? Because it seems to always come down to they don't come when we call, or there's been some, some concerns about that.
I know for the most part, I think those problems had stemmed when we looked into it to the fact that they hadn't called. They put something on social media, and we don't have time to follow all the SWIP swaps and things looking for calls. If they call, we should be able to get out there in a reasonable amount of time. Once in a while, it could be, we're in Sea Colony, and then we get a call on Tangerine, or so certainly once in a while there is a delay, but for the most part, we are able to respond pretty quickly.
I'm sorry, I did have a couple. Are you done,
Oh, yeah,
Commissioner
sorry,
Pennington?
for
Okay.
now.
Regarding the financials, I requested some financials, and I believe I was sent 2022 to 2023 and 2023 to 2024. I appreciate those being sent to me. I do have some more questions, kind of getting more into some granular figures. We can discuss later, because quite candidly, it's a lot, and it would take up a lot more of the meeting than I think anybody wants to hear me drone on about. My high-level question is, though, I did see a rollover surplus of about $200,000 a year. Can you explain that?
That, are you, the surplus of which year?
I don't remember.
You said 200,000 though?
200,000, yes.
We have had a couple of good years, so that the surplus does go into our investment account. Usually my budget, I just finished this year's budget, the proposed budget at least, and we're set to make $12. So, but if we have a good year, if somebody leaves us a bequest, or we get a good grant, then we can come out a little bit ahead. But then it goes into savings for other needs. This year we just had, last week we had to get one new air conditioner and a new pump, and so that was almost $18,000 right there in 1 week. So.
When you say investment account, can you explain that a little further?
It's at Alliance. We have a couple of accounts with them, so that our money can grow a little bit, what little bit we have.
Okay. And somebody mentioned a capital campaign to deal with the capacity issues. Has it been discussed by the board to maybe take those monies and earmark them for growth?
Oh, for sure, for sure. That's the goal. If we don't need to spend them on other things that might, other needs, for sure. But it's a drop in the bucket. I think we've got like 800,000 or something, and that's not going to get us very far.
800,000 in the investment accounts? Okay. And then the FTEs that are animal control, what's the salary that you're paying for that?
Katie's been with us 25 years. What are you? Woohoo, she just got up to 20 after 25 years.
And I only asked to compare what we're paying. That's why, not to pry.
I can promise you, if you build something, you won't get a staff as cheap as you got. I think, this group really is working for the animals. I make half of what my colleagues on Florida Animal Control Association makes, in most cases less than half. So if you did build a shelter, you'd have to get ready for probably at least a $6 million a year budget. We are doing it this year. Our budget's going to go up to $3 million, but that's because I'm cheap.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Yes, sir.
Just two questions. One, the animals that are protected there are exclusively from Flagler County?
For the most part, we have been asked once in a while. There's a couple of very poor shelters up in the Panhandle that don't even have an adoption program at all. So we have been asked to take, I think we've taken 10-ish or so from Gadsden County. I would like the people that are complaining about us to go see that place. It's a really sad shelter. So we've helped them. Sometimes people lie to us too, and they'll say they found an animal in Palm Coast, and it's really St. Johns County, but for the most part, we are
So
Flagler County.
that was really my question because of your your location on US 1. Are you seeing a lot of traffic from St. John's? It was just a question.
Yes, we are getting other shelters right now in order to not have this kind of thing happen, where they're getting blamed for euthanasia. A lot of shelters around the state right now, animal control facilities and shelters are turning animals away. They're just saying, we're full, we can't take them. And so we are getting requests from Jacksonville, Seminole County, Volusia County, St. John's, Putnam.
So
everything.
I appreciate the segue. So on the slide that we're looking at right now, just as a potential footnote, I was thinking, should we also be at least thinking that we may want to consider some regional approach to this as well? And the other part of this is in the event of storms, we're currently in hurricane season. What happens to your shelter in the event that we have a
I'm
a
actually
catastrophic event?
Yeah, I'm actually glad you asked because we worked really hard ever since Hurricane Matthew, I think or Irma was the one that started it. I applied for a FEMA grant. So now we have storm shutters completely surrounding the building, and we have a full generator, just like a hospital. So if lights go out, it just pops on. So we're covered. And then also, too, we work with EOC during the storms, any storm, and we also run the school, the shelter for pets and people. So usually it's at Bunnell Elementary, so we run that as well.
A question for the city is, are you on the same cycle with the other contracts? Is yours up for renewal in 2025 as well?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay. So I think there's opportunities within this time window. I think our yearly contract is coming to us, but the renewal is a year away, and that gives us opportunities to enhance our agreement and some of the and accommodate some of these other issues that we brought up. Did you, Chief? Did you want to come and talk about Commissioner Sullivan's question about some of the sheriff's offices? Oh, it was Greg. Sorry.
Mr. Chair, may I just ask one more question? I'm sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
Has the board discussed, or do you know of any objection to having a representative from City Council and the BOCC on the board as liaison?
I can't speak for the board. I know whether it's a board position or just some sort of monthly meeting with me. I welcome it because I don't want to have people have any doubts in us. So, like I said, I can't speak for the board, but I welcome if like you were saying, a little bit more oversight. If you want to start that before the next contract, we got nothing to hide.
Now, I think I received an email, or I remember hearing a comment that you have an opening on your board. Is that true?
I think we filled that recently. We did have an opening.
Okay.
But I can't speak for the board, but I know we had two that just joined the board recently.
But I think in your question, I think there's room on a rotating basis that either a city or a county commissioner, council person would be able to, if agreeable, I think we could get that done quickly.
I agree, yeah.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Okay, great. So if you would, I'll bring Chief up to answer Commissioner Hansen's question. Right?
Well, it was just an observation that I've noted across the state that not every county, but some counties, the sheriff does animal control. And that's all I'm not saying we should do that, but was approached by the sheriff. So that's why I brought it up.
So it's Mark Strobridge, Flagler County Sheriff's Office, and that is true. In a lot of the organizations or counties throughout the entire state, the sheriff has has taken on the responsibility, because there is no statutory requirement for the sheriff to do that, of animal control. Brevard County has a program down there. It's a model program. It's a very good program that works through it, but there is a lot to it. And certainly, we would have to examine what the cost-benefit analysis would be and what the enforcement would look like long-term on something like that. But it is absolutely true. A lot of sheriffs have taken that responsibility on as a public safety measure.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
So
Anything
if we're,
else?
are we coming to comments now? So I have a few comments.
Yes,
Just-
absolutely.
One of the things I feel like I need to see is the breakout of, since it's 300 a cat, 500 a dog, it costs, I just think I need to see the breakout of what animal control officers cost in terms of coverage for what's picked up out of the county. So like how many animals are picked up by the county? You have to separate the city to the county. They're totally different beasts, because out of the 2,700, majority could be coming out of the city. To see exactly what it would cost for the county to operate the animal officer version of this versus the Humane Society. And the reason I say that is because the animal control is a reflection of the county. We swear in the officer, we pay for the officer, and there's really no oversight by the board, though, into that person. And the majority of complaints that I get are around animal control itself. And it's difficult to hear some of the things, whether they're hearsay or true or not. I know there was some back and forth. There had been some texts between animal control at one point with a resident, calls and upsetting calls. It's hard to tell a resident, a taxpayer, that yes, we pay for animal control, but we have no oversight of it, no control, and I can't control the person or what occurred, what happened in your instance. So to me, or that they couldn't come out. So I'd like to see what the cost analysis of doing something like the city, where animal control is done by the county, but the animal goes to the Humane Society, we pay per animal, would be for that role. And then that's important. And then the second thing I think is the bigger thing that we're not talking about. There is no real plan for growth by the Humane Society currently. They don't have the funding. There's no capital plan. Animals are in cages and offices and bathrooms. And, if you had animal control live outside of the Humane Society, then you may have the opportunity to find nonprofits to take the animal to and pay the nonprofit, so that it would take some animals off of their, issue, where they don't have the space and they don't have a capacity for it. And it would put some animals out into different venues where they may have a chance of getting adopted quicker. And then the balance is the cost may end up being the same or even less. It depends on how many the county needs to staff. We may only need one, because we only may have so many animals a year compared to the city. So I think that's something to think about. It's really just how much control and oversight do you have of the animal control person? That's where our tax dollars are going to, and we don't have that right now. And two is capacity for animals. There is no plan there, and it's a growing county and a growing issue. And what is the plan? And if we controlled the animal control officer portion of it, could we figure out a way to take those animals when they're at capacity or over capacity and take them into nonprofits so that they're evenly distributed if we're paying per animal? So that's just my thought.
So what other nonprofits would take them?
Community cats, Flagler cats. If you're paying per animal to take them in, like the city, could you pay the nonprofits to take some of the animals? Just as you would be paying the Humane Society per animal.
Okay. All right.
My observations, just from the city perspective, because we only pay for sheltering, is that we absolutely need to come up with a plan for the capacity issue. I think looking into the impact fee option is something that needs to be pursued, if it's a possibility, obviously. If it is something where we work with the Flagler Humane Society on their capacity issue, if that's how we decide to move forward, then fine. Or if we look to even not just animal control through the sheriff's office, but perhaps sheltering somehow through the sheriff's office as well. We need to explore it. We need to explore it, I think, pretty quick. The fact that we are almost 100% over capacity for dogs in the shelter is to me, very sad. I can't imagine, and this is of no fault of the shelter, but I can't imagine they're getting the care that is intended and that's desired for these animals. And I hate to hear that they're probably getting neglected. And again, not for any other reason, but there's just too many of them. So I really look to staff and the board to keep this top of mind as we are growing very quickly, both in the city and the county, to try to figure out this capacity issue. So hopefully this can stay, as we have some rollover here, some turnover on the boards coming up, but I would like to see this continue to be an issue that we look into. So those are my overall observations.
Okay, on this side, Commissioner Sullivan?
Just, I agree about the capacity and the board and all that, but I also think there needs to be another educational process going on to inform the public about spay and neutering their animals. I mean, people are ending up getting cat, litter after cat, and they drop them off at the Humane Society, and that's a relatively easy thing to take care of if the people just take the time. So that whole spay and neutering process is critical to improving the situation also.
Commissioner Hanson?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Pontieri. I think the number one thing that we've got to deal with is capacity. And whatever we can do as a combined council and commission, whatever we can do to get that train started down the road to where we have a plan to either build add on to your building or build another building right there. I don't know how much land you have there. But I think that should be project number one to get that done. And I love the idea of the impact fees. I think that's great. It's going to take a lot of money, but I think if we don't start, we'll never get there. So we need to start.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner O'Brien, anything? And before we go to public comment, the only thing I'll add is for your board of directors, part of your responsibility is making sure you find board members that can help your mission and vision. I think what you've been missing is that mission on the capital program and being able to raise funds for that. You should have somebody on your board that should be able to run with that program for you. So if you need to fill in a spot, that's where I would be looking, is for somebody on your board that can take that and run with it, that's got some marketing capabilities, or at least can work with, as you mentioned, people that are looking to place funds in their will or their estate. And unfortunately, you're behind the 8 ball on that now, but I think it's going to be a combined effort, and hopefully you can, I'm looking for you guys to address that as well, not just be us solving that up here.
Chair Jansen, when you finish, I just have a comment after you're done.
I think that was really my one. I think everybody else has hit a lot of the issues. I'm looking forward to revisiting our annual, our new agreement for 2025 to be able to incorporate some of the ideas that we've shared. And then I'll open it up for public comment after you're done.
One or two.
Okay, go ahead.
Just a comment. If I think everyone in the audience understands, and I think the dais has also expressed the idea that sort of time is of the essence, expediency is very, very important. So I would underscore again a reach out to both St. John's and to Volusia, because if we're experiencing the problem here, I can almost promise you they are experiencing a similar problem to some degree. With my personal experience just with veterinarians, they tend to roam the region and not be confined to a geographical municipality or boundary. So if we need to get something done quicker, if we can establish a relationship with the surrounding counties, I don't know, maybe it's worth researching and making some phone calls.
And Commissioner Hanson.
Yeah, Amy, just a question. Do you do this or does the board do this?
Joint effort. We have a development committee.
You do. So somebody on the board comes up with these ideas, or do you come up with these ideas?
You'll have to come up, Amy, because nobody can hear you.
So what I'm asking about for the audience is Bets for Pets, Casino Gala.
Casino night.
Yeah,
Casino night, we, our board, we have a development committee, so it's a couple of board members and then a couple of volunteers and a couple of staff are on the development committee. So we put that together. That's hopefully going to be our big fundraiser for the fall.
You do two a year?
We do several fundraisers. We do the spaghetti dinner. A lot of y'all have been to the
right. That's
spaghetti
right. I've heard of
dinner.
that, yeah.
And then usually we have one little bit more highbrow event and then a lot of small events. Last night we had a little event at Tortugas. So we do a lot of small fundraisers, but that really just helps with our operations costs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so at this time I'll open up for public comment. I know we've heard a lot of, from City Council, watching City Council meeting, there's been a lot of public comment a few weeks here, so hopefully we can condense all of our public comments together. But everybody is welcome to speak and come up to the podium, state your name, and you've got 3 minutes.
Cameron Orr, and I appreciate it. I've been before the county before and the city, and actually some of the comments kind of stole my thunder. My message has been to embarrass this county into increasing capacity. I prefer a municipal shelter. We're one of 13 counties in the state that does not have a municipal shelter. I appreciate the chief's comments. I came here from Brevard. I was very familiar with that operation. I had the opportunity to visit with them again 3 weeks ago just to get an update. The sheriff runs the shelter and dog control officers in Brevard. They have a shelter with 80 kennels. They run it with 13 employees and 3 full-time veterinarians plus a supervisor. And they operate on about a $3.5 million a year budget. Just to update you on that. Since it was brought up, every employee at that shelter is background checked, fingerprinted, and subject to random drug tests throughout the year. So you can kind of expect that since it's under the sheriff. So there's really no doubt about, the quality of employees they get there. They do suffer some of the same issues we do. They have a budget for 18 employees, but they get along with 13 right now. But again, I'm pleased to see that the county is stepping up to recognize that we need more capacity in this county. Like I say, we're on the high side of intake per 1,000 residents and compared to our neighboring counties. And so again, it's not going to happen overnight, but I appreciate that the commission and the city is going to look at increasing capacity in one way or another. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Wendy Chamarchi. I have recently moved to eastern Flagler County and am entering into my 10th elected year as a member of the Vero Beach and Indian River County Humane Society. I've served as secretary and president of that shelter. Both the city of Vero and Indian River County both hire and supervise their own animal control officers. Ideally, it should be under the Sheriff's Department that we are looking into now right after the voting is completed next month. The Flagler shelter needs to work better at moving and fostering animals and not housing them for many months and sometimes years, I just found out. They are trying to achieve and keep the goal of good live release rate so that they can be considered as a no-kill shelter. The short time I volunteered there in the last couple of months, there are many, many red flags, many more than I can put in this 3 minutes. Does the shelter have an up-to-date written strategic plan for housing the animals in our growing community? Does the board have a separate foundation to oversee and invest any monies outside of operating monies, budget, to help grow the organization and keep a healthy financial organization and ability to grow with the county's needs? The shelter infrastructure is old, needs a lot of work. It was meant to house animals for short periods of time. If you go to many, many shelters, you're all welcome to mine. I know you're welcome to Brevard's. You'll see how a shelter should be set up for animals to live there more than a couple of weeks. This is not it. It is severely overcrowded and not sustainable or viable to meet the growing needs of this community. Do they have funds for expansion? I heard tonight they do not. They don't have a fund development committee to go out and raise the funds or to oversee it. They don't even have a quarantine for sick animals. Animals are all kept in the same rooms. So that will tell you, if there should be quarantined, what's happening. Other animals are getting sick. They're in the general population. Flagler County needs a second option for animals to go. Almost all the counties have a second option. Almost all of them. About 2 weeks ago, I downloaded their return for fiscal year ending 21-22. Their 990 stated a total revenue of $4.3 million. Yesterday on that website, the same 990 stated revenue of $2.2 million. Which is it? Why did they change it? Because Flagler Live questioned that? Between their accountant, executive director, and board members, no one noticed a $2 million discrepancy until just this past week? Who is treasurer of that board? And I'm calling for a forensic audit just for that reason alone, $2 million discrepancy. I would suggest that animal control be taken over by the county quickly, Sheriff's Department preferably. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to make this very
State your
quick,
name,
so
please.
pardon my reading through this, because,
State your name, please.
Jeff Jacobs, just a citizen
Thank you.
of Palm Coast, a resident. Since I wasn't prepared for 3 minutes, first I'm just going to address something that Amy had said as far as amounts of money for a cat or a dog. I think she was being very kind and frugal when she said $300 to $500 by the time an animal gets adopted out. Fostering cats and dealing with cats, I know it's a lot more money than that. Having said that, I'm also going to not try and address anything as far as monies, because I'm not versed in that. I'm certainly not as eloquent as someone else, and I'm already down to 2 minutes and 22. I'm going to play on your emotions, because that's what I think this comes down to, especially when there are calls and people complain, well, nobody got here quick enough. If they have multiple calls, of course, everyone's pet is always going to be a priority. Can you blame them? I wouldn't. Having said that, I'm down to 2 minutes. So, my respect for Flagler Humane Society is predicated upon personal experience. And pardon the pun, I still don't have a dog in this fight. Beyond setting the record straight, I'm going to address some of the accusations and allegations that I have heard. I have actually worked with other rescues. Every single one has pros and cons. Nobody is perfect. And I'm sure they'll all be the first to admit that as well, at least if they're being honest. My familiarity with Flagler Humane reveal they excel far beyond those of my past contribution to other local rescues. As I share their joy with every rescue to adoption resolve, I also honestly do not know how they are able to push through every heartbreak, gut punch, agony, and responding to daily human cruelty, abuse, and neglect that's dumped at their feet. They don't ask for this, but they still respond. I know they go through depression on this. I'm trying to go through this as fast as I can. I don't think I could rise to that task. I'm going to skip down here. So many we're quick to pile on with the allegations and accusations. Sadly, with social media, once something is stated by someone who might have an ulterior agenda or motivation, it's out there for a reputable agency to have to defend themselves. With my association with them, again, I'm not a volunteer there. I don't work for them, but I am there often because of TNR, because of lost cats that we reunite with other people, with people that have lost their animals. Also, it's 28 seconds. With the feral cats, forget that. So that's my association with them. Every time that I've been there, I've observed professional, caring people who are overwhelmed because they don't have a budget, and they cry and their hearts break for any animal that is not savable. The allegations of abuse and putting an animal to sleep unnecessarily, euthanasia, is not warranted. It's not true. I had so much.
Thank you.
Can I get another 3 minutes? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
All right, we got to calm down on the clapping. We understand this is emotional, but let's get everybody coming up to the podium so they have a chance to speak. Welcome.
Welcome, Linda Lester. I just want to talk a little bit about the allegation about the income tax return. We have a CPA that prepares our returns. Unfortunately, an erroneous return before it was finalized was posted out at the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Affairs, and that has been corrected. And I have the history of the tax return here if you want to see it for the past 5 years. I also have a letter from our CPA that addresses a lot of these allegations that I'm happy to share with you to say that we are clearly above board. Everything that we have, as Amy said, is available for your review. And by law, we have to post it on the site of the Consumer Affairs Department of Florida. As far as the capital campaign, I must admit that we have explored. We have a realtor that we're working with to explore land purchases. We've contacted the owner of the parcel north of us. We've tried to contact the owner of the parcel south of us. The one north of us has about 9 acres. The one south of us only has about 2.4 acres. We do have a little bit of space on our current site. It has a retention pond on it right now. When we're working with, you may know Charlie Faulkner, we're working with him to see if that land is usable. His opinion is we'd have to build anything on pilings, but we're hoping that that's not true. So we are exploring land purchases at this time. We do have a capital fund that we have. We have an investment policy that I'd be happy to share with you also. It's with a company named Alliance right here in Palm Coast. Every time we get excess funds, rollovers, whatever you want to call them, they go into that fund, and it is a capital account that we are looking to expand and buy property for this very reason. We're over capacity. We know it. The building's 20 years old. We know it. The population of Palm Coast and Flagler County has exploded, as well as the pet population. So we look to the commissioner and the city to help us fund our growth. We're willing to do that and work with you and step forward for the best for the animals. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you for your comments.
Okay.
If you wanted to leave any of the papers, you can with the clerk if you had extras. Over here. And we'll put those on the record. Good afternoon.
My name is, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Celia Puglisi. I live in Palm Coast since 1991. I think it's very pressing, the need of expansion, because the growth we are having, and then the animals pay the price. I am totally in agreement with our Councilwoman Ponchieri regarding looking into the impact fees, because impact fees should be part of the growth and need of a shelter. And I know the county didn't have impact fees for a long time, and there should have been some funds there for growth. But also, I do agree that I do see that we need to have a municipal shelter, because when an organization is private, it's so much oversight we can have. And they have the right to say no if they wish, because they are privately run. It's private. And I hear now they are intending to buy land. And my question is, why is that it's being reported that the Humane Society sold the front line land on Route 1 around 2000 something, they sold for $340,000. I mean, if that land is true, what is being reported and could be found out, and ask or ask the people of the board, because I don't think Amy was there about that time. Why is that if the land was donated by ITT for a shelter, why is that they decided, this board or past board decided to sell a good piece of land that will be needed in the future? So these things happen, if happened, is because they are a private organization, and we don't have the right to go and request anything if they wish not to. So we need to have a municipal shelter to protect our animals, because I am sad what is taking place. And I'm sad for any shelter that has to kill animals. But Flagler County needs to have its own shelter. At least we'll have a good oversight. This is, as a taxpayer and living here since 91, and knowing Amy, and I think she's trying all she can, but whatever a private organization is trying the best is not enough. We need to have our own shelter. And our authorities and our impact fees should be paying for that. And we need to collaborate on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Richard Lester. I'm a retired dentist. I clean dogs' and cats' teeth from outsiders and the shelter.
You can pull that up so you don't have to. There you go. Good
Thank
job.
you.
Sure.
The whole time I've been there, 2.5 years, I've never seen a shelter animal, cat, dog, mistreated. They are well taken care of. And the ladies and the men that work there give it all. We're not overstaffed. We got too many cats and dogs. And we have been looking at ways to expand. But I will not believe anybody who says those animals are mistreated or not taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, my name's Tammy Lewis. I've been volunteering at the Flagler Humane Society for almost a year now, and it concerns me to hear that previous volunteers are talking terribly about the shelter, not only at these meetings, but all over social media. The only ones they are hurting are our dogs waiting to get adopted. I wish they would be the solution and not the problem. What they have failed to mention is all the great things this shelter does. Let me just name a few. Veterinarian services, Saturday shot clinics at greatly reduced fees. This helps animals stay with their owners, and they're all up to date on vaccinations. Outreach programs. We're taking dogs to First Fridays. We're taking them to pet stores. We're taking them to the food trucks. This helps get all these dogs more exposure and up for adoptions. Owners in need, owners who can't afford the cost of food, we can help them out and supply them. This keeps the dogs with the owners and not surrendered to the shelter. Playgroups. We take dogs out of the kennels into a large playground, some days 45 to 50 dogs, where they can socialize with other dogs. This helps them socialize with their socialization skills and keeps them active. Volunteer meetings and trainings. They educate us so we can use the tools to help these dogs play better, leash training, and listen to commands. This makes dogs more adoptable. Every dog that leaves that shelter is vaccinated, is chipped, spayed and neutered. Not a small task, not cheap. The shelter takes euthanasia very seriously. It is never, ever an easy decision, and it's difficult on the shelter just as much as these past volunteers who are complaining. There is a liability we have to keep. There's a liability if we keep a dog with behavioral issues. They could hurt a human being and another dog. We are not going to let this happen, and this is why these decisions must be made. When our shelter has space, which isn't a lot of times, but Amy will reach out for other shelters to see if they have dogs up for euthanasia and bring them to our shelter to help them get adopted. At the end of the day, human safety is our first priority. Since I only have... Now you are hearing both sides of the story. As an animal lover and currently studying to become a veterinarian tech, there is no possible way I would ever volunteer at a shelter that is inhumane to animals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Ann Thompson,
I have to say on Tammy's comments just now that playgroup is an amazing thing for these dogs, which they do. Unfortunately, it's only done 3 days a week for 3 or 4 hours at a time, which leaves the dogs in the kennels for 150 hours per week. Yes, I believe they're taken out in the morning. In the afternoon, it's reliant on volunteers to walk them. And it's quite a job with that many dogs. You need a lot of volunteers. The next, I really appreciate the fact that you're looking at putting a liaison on the board. I have reached out to the board a number of times to try and have them meet with volunteers and have received nothing. Last week, I sent certified letters to 5 of the board members and still have received nothing. So we have attempted to talk to them, not just come to the council. Several years ago, the board at that time told the director to fire 2 employees. They were fired, and the director was suspended for 2 weeks for not dealing with the situation earlier. After that board was replaced with the new board members, the director rehired one of those people who is now animal control officer. This animal control officer is now facing charges for animal cruelty. I have the case number right here if you would like it. What is going on here? Innocent animals' lives are at stake. And yes, I know that the shelter is terribly overwhelmed. And what we are looking for is change. We're not trying to shut a shelter down or cause any more harm to animals, but it is time for change, and we really need help to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank
Welcome.
you for hearing us this evening. My name is Sue Laurel, and I was previously a volunteer for 2 years at Flagler Humane Society. I love every one of those pets. It's amazing, and we do have some good staff that loves them as well. But unlike as Tammy stated, the training, it doesn't exist. There's no training for the volunteers. I actually approached them on contacting the new volunteers that come to orientation as prospects, just to call them and see if we can, hey, can we have a buddy system? And we started doing buddy walks, and it was very helpful. And then they have, of course, had to do a little bit of maneuvering with their sidewalks, and it changed everything, and I think those people got a little uncomfortable. They don't often keep the volunteers. Once they start, they may have 300 on their email, and they may have 100, as they call it, active, but if you really want to count the volunteers, go there more often. I used to be there 60 to 63 hours a month as a volunteer because of my passion. I was helping dogs get adopted often. Many times dogs are returned because they do not properly educate people that are adopting. And none of the dogs that I helped get adopted were returned. Why? Because I stayed in contact. I actually offered, maybe we can, just make calls to those people that have adopted. How are things going? I do realize they don't have enough staff, but volunteers were willing, and they didn't take me up on that. All I can say is the animals are amazing. They are worth every moment that you're listening to us and to expand and have a new shelter in this county. The city of Palm Coast is overpopulated at this point with pets that are unfortunately many times neglected. People are moving and they say, I can't take my pet, so they just drop them off. You don't do that to your kids. I don't think it should be done to your pets either. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Debbie Yarbrough. I've lived here almost 30 years now.
I volunteered at the shelter for many, many years during the outreach program, and then I did the Reading with Paws program with one of my dogs that I adopted from there for 7 or 8 years. Anyway, I've had many dealings over these last years with the Humane Society. I just recently had a stray that I kept in my house for 5.5 weeks. When I got her, she weighed 18 pounds. I got her up to 34 pounds, but she had food aggression. She had been starved up to that point. She still didn't realize after 5.5 weeks that she was going to have a full bowl set down for her at least 3 times a day. So I had 3 smaller dogs, and this dog attacked one of my smaller dogs. Completely 100% my fault. I had a bowl of food in my hand. I spilt it. It spattered all over the floor, and it was kind of like a game of Hungry Hippos. All the dogs are right trying to grab their pieces, and this dog attacked one of my small dogs. She was about 15 pounds, just messed her up a little bit, but not severely. But the point is, I had a 7-pound dog. Had it been that 7-pound dog, she would have killed her. I had no place to take this dog right then and right there. I was angry, put her to sleep. She's aggressive. She was not aggressive. She was a hungry, starved dog. During me trying to get her off of my dog, she never offered to bite me. She never offered to, I had my hands in her mouth trying to pry her apart. She never offered any aggression to any person, any other animal in all of that time. I took her to the shelter. I said, Amy, please, can we find this poor dog a home with someone who doesn't have little dogs and they understand it's an issue with food aggression, not aggressive dog that's going to attack somebody. She had been with my dogs for weeks. She was perfectly fine. This was totally my fault for allowing food to get in the way. I had been feeding her separately outside. Thankfully, Amy took this dog, being over full, absolutely. She took this dog. I got on the internet. This is a great dog, guys, but she's got food aggression, and she found a home in about 5 days. So I'm very, very thankful that they were there to do that. Otherwise, I'd have been lost. I couldn't keep her at my house and take a chance on her attacking one of my dogs again, but I was thankful to have that place to take her to. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Scott Hunter. Interesting you brought up the point about people leaving money in their will and such, to put towards their funds. We had read an article in 2012 that someone had put $500,000 as a bequest and then subsequently took it away. 12 years later, for the same issues that we're talking about now, those were the reasons that she took away the bequest. It was put in the Daytona Beach News Journal, and her name was Joy Gornick, so it could be looked up. But there's a lot of public suspicion right now about the financial accountability at the Humane Society, since they're acting as a quasi-public entity by performing publicly funded services for the community. Elected officials, it seems, would have a fiduciary responsibility to ensure that taxpayer money is being properly spent with full and faithful accountability. A forensic audit by a CPA firm that has no ties or prior work history with the Humane Society we'd think would be in order. So the board could take the necessary steps also to properly register their activities under the Article 496-407B3. The board should have no objections to this request, since they need to be aware of any financial irregularities and also to live up to their publicly promised assurances about the integrity of their operation. If they do object, it would only serve to increase public suspicion and possibly curtail future donor contributions. Their website states, quote, that we continue to receive clean financial audits from the outside auditors at Certified Financial and Tax every year. Here is our audit information since 2018. The IRS records that are shown are not audit reports. To say so is disingenuous and misleading. While they do use a firm that may have the capability of performing such an audit, this is not the information that is provided. Therefore, we may have another misrepresentation of the facts to potential donors. The county commissioners and elected officials of Palm Coast have a duty to the public to require that their only source of animal control in the county to demonstrate that taxpayer funds are being properly spent and without any irregular financial accountings. I will also say that I volunteered at the shelter. The animals are amazing. Everybody there is very hardworking. Unfortunately, as another speaker said, we've requested meetings with the board to try to discuss what can be done. We haven't even gotten a response. Go away, we don't like you, nothing. Unfortunately, this really had to turn where it's, we're just disgruntled ex-volunteers. That's not the case. We're angry. Things need to change, and we would love to be part of that change, but you guys are taking great steps towards that. Thank you for that.
Thank you. All right.
Hello.
Evening.
Kathy Saris, thank you all for everything you're doing. I know they have the play groups, and I know they get a lot of, I'll talk about the dogs that are dumped, surrendered. And many of these dogs, just about all of them, don't know what they did to deserve to be there. Some of them came from families for some reason or another. They had to surrender them, and some people maybe just dump them. I have a couple. And so their personality of that dog is not like the personality they're going to be at home. I know I have a growler, I have a biter. They don't do that anymore, but they're scared. They don't know what they did to deserve to be kept in a kennel, maybe in an employee bathroom for months, or in the food storage room for months. I was a volunteer, one of those disgruntled, as they're calling me, terminated. And I did get an email one time because I was doing an outreach, and a resident asked if it was a no-kill shelter, and the other volunteer said yes, and I corrected her that they're not a no-kill shelter. And I got an email saying, maybe you don't want to be a volunteer. And I think I got fired one or two other times too, but I kept coming back. I have done food drives. I have donated quilts and wreaths and everything for the Humane Society. Bottom line is they need to do better, okay? And they don't want to accept passionate volunteers. They let 3 of them go. One, they said she wrote something on social media, and she never did. She's gone back to even ask if she can please come back. Her heart is with the dogs. They said, let's talk about it. We'll talk about it and get back to you. And they never did. So that's okay, they can do what they want. And I also helped, after orientations, call and set up appointments with new volunteers. They need all the volunteers they can get. They're more passionate because they do this out of love, not for a paycheck. So the dog's personality is totally different from what's in the shelter and what's at home. And they're treated much better. They can't be living in crates. And then, I would bring them treats, and the other volunteers would bring treats, and then there's a sign on the room that the volunteers are not allowed in there, and we were told because the volunteers are stealing the treats. It's all ridiculous, but that's okay. We love the animals, and we know you do too, so thank you. And get a new person on the board, someone from here.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Lee Kappelman. I would like to address multiple misleading accusations that have recently been made against Flagler Humane Society. I've been volunteering as a dog walker for the past 8 months. The staff at the facility are courteous, respectful, and extremely compassionate to all animals. They are kind to people who are adopting animals or bringing their animals for medical care. I have never personally experienced any malicious treatment by shelter staff to animals within their care. Prior statements suggesting shelter dogs are being euthanized driven by capacity limitations are questionable. Some current dogs, yes, have been in the kennel since I started in January, with several living there over a year. If dogs were being euthanized due to capacity, logical criteria to determine which ones would be linked at the shelter. For a community shelter to be considered a no-kill shelter, the facility must save at least 90% of the animals who enter the facility. The 2023 report on the website, Flagler's website, dated 2/2/24, shows live intakes in 2023 were 2,479. Shelter euthanasia was 143 animals, which equates to 94.2% animal lives saves. That's a fantastic achievement for our community and the animals rescued. During my time with the shelter, I am personally aware of 6 dogs that were euthanized due to behavioral issues. Based on that same 2023 data, on average, 16 dogs are adopted weekly. At that rate, 512 dogs have been adopted during my tenure. What an amazing job by the staff, volunteers, and our community. I understand the agonizing, painful decision to euthanize shelter dogs for various reasons. As a dog lover, this is emotionally difficult to accept. As a logical person, I completely agree with the decisions that were made. I have full confidence that the staff at FHS make the best decisions for all our animals in their care. I do agree with the capacity constraints at the shelter. Dogs are housed in overflow areas while the staff continues to find options to intake all animals in need. What the dogs need is for everyone to focus their combined energy to find them loving homes for and raise funds to expand capacity. This misleading negative publicity is ultimately hurting shelter animals. In addition to being a dog walker, I'm the proud mom of a Rhodesian Ridgeback. I have lived with dogs my entire life. As a professional, I am an educated director for a Fortune 500 company. I consider myself very qualified to make educated decisions. If I had any concerns about animal well-being at the shelter, I would resign my volunteer position. With that, you'll see me walking dogs this weekend. I encourage the community to support the exceptional efforts of the Flagler Humane Society. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hey guys.
Welcome.
I'm Heather Roan. I'm a vet tech at the Flagler Humane Society. I have 2 things that I would like to address initially.
Come speak a little closer to the mic.
I'm sorry. I have
That's
2
okay.
things that I really want to address. One was a comment about neglect because we are so oversized right now. And I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, every single dog and cat gets pet, gets walked, gets fed twice a day, gets let out of their kennel every single day. I understand that overcapacity is an issue and it's hard, but there isn't a single, I mean, we have a dog right now named Bella that if I stick my hand in her cage, she will bite it. But every single day, I go there and I give her treats and I let her lick off of a stick. And every day it gets better. And that's just shelter life. There's no neglect going on. There's no dogs living in cages. We have dogs that we put in crates at night in our offices for their safety and for the safety of our offices, our equipment. You know, we have microscopes, we have things they could chew on and get hurt. The only dogs we have actually in crates are in the hallway, and they are in a stray holding period where they're there for maybe 1 or 2 days to assess their medical needs, to get them vaccinated and get them acclimated to going back into the kennel and or an office. There's no dogs living in crates day after day after day, not getting let out, just to clarify that. The other thing I want to address is I don't understand, like, we're getting bad named for euthanizing a very human aggressive dog, and then we're getting bad named for having dogs for over a year. A lot of our dogs get adopted and they come back. So that looks like they're there for a year or 2 years, but we have in our contract, if you adopt our dog and you can no longer take care of it, you bring it back to us and we will find another home for it. That's a misconception there. We don't have dogs that have been there for years and years. We take them back. Other shelters do not. They say, no way, you have 30 days, that dog's not ours anymore. We take every animal that comes through that door, whether it's from out of county, whether it's our county, whether it's mean, whether it's nice. And that causes the problem we have now. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Vincent Lyon.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. And I'm only here because I don't know when to keep my mouth shut. Full disclosure, I'm on the board of directors for the Humane Society, and I'm also a volunteer foster for Community Cats of Palm Coast. So I'm very familiar with how both of those organizations run. I too took great offense at the term neglect being thrown around because the animals are not neglected. Are they living the life that my dogs live in my home? No, because they're in a shelter with 100 other dogs. But they are all, as she just said, they're all cared for. They're all watched for. The Humane Society does the best they can. And I just want to remind everyone that the board of directors are also volunteers. For the most part, well, actually, I can't speak for anyone else. Myself, I consider myself to be an overeducated working person. So, I think we're all there volunteering as well. And because we have a passion for the animals as well, and we are checking every time to make sure this is handled well. There were some holes we've come out of in the past few years. Everybody suffered back through a couple of major declines in the county. We are in a good position fiscally, but we are not good enough to go out and buy a new building. And I really appreciate and welcome the suggestions that I've heard here tonight. I do want to let you know, like the board is working on trying to find ways to address that. But I would like to see the county not only to support the Humane Society, but also back a system for encouraging trap, neuter, and release. I mentioned community cats. That's how they started. They were just trap, neuter, and release or return. And they tried to get a system set up with the city, and the city was supportive for a while, and then it kind of fell to the backlines. But that is something that really needs to be addressed. That will reduce the number of animals that are finding their way into shelter. It's something that the county and the city can do with minimal expense that will have a large impact. So I'd like to see the county help in more ways than just, are you going to pay us more? Are you going to build another building? That's another way the county can help with high impact, low expense. Thanks.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Kendra Mott, and I'm the Animal Care and Placement Manager at the Flagler Humane Society. I've worked there for 6 years and been in this role for 4. Thank you very much for your time and to put so much effort into addressing the capacity needs that our community is seeing. It is definitely something that we need to address. I would just, a lot has been said about municipal and county-run shelters, not that they would in Flagler County because we are animal lovers, but because of the increased oversight and fiduciary responsibility. I know of other counties where they have care cost caps for individual animals. There's length of stay, time limits. I would just be careful about opening this up. If we want to do better always, but doing it this way, if we don't do it right, like Amy said, may result in the opposite of what was started here. I'd also be leery of, I'm sorry, it's hard to talk in front of people. That's why I work with animals. It just seems like we can never win. I feel personally attacked about a lot of these things. We can't turn them away. We can't euthanize them. They can't be there that long. They can't be in that room. They can't, I don't want to address each and every one of those, but I do dedicate my life to this. I have a stack of completed certificates that I've done to understand and do better for the Flagler animals, understanding their behavior in the shelter and trying to do programs that'll increase their enrichment and happiness while they're there so they get adopted faster and they stay healthy. I would like to just gear the conversation maybe towards why they're coming into the shelter, and maybe we could address that. Almost 30% of the reasons why all of everywhere in Flagler County is coming in is due to housing. So they can't find a place that they can afford to live in. They're living in their car. They can't find a place that'll take that breed. They have too many animals. When they moved to Palm Coast, they had to get rid of some. So I just wanted to make that point that maybe we could gear it more towards why are they at the shelter? What can we do to keep them with their families and never have to come in? So thank you so much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Darlene Shelley. I'm Palm Coast since 2012. Just trying to throw some suggestions out there for perhaps a solution that might not be immediate, but that perhaps the county could consider helping out the situation by seeking some of the large grants that are available when you have the right folks seeking them. I can't think of really a better use for a grant from either federal government or whatever's available than the animals and the folks that love them. Like $80 million that we've had, the city has gotten grants for westward expansion that will not benefit one animal, but in fact take the home away of millions of animals. $80 million, what could you do with that? If the county got involved, perhaps there's a nice piece of property that perhaps they could annex to a new home that would take care of the animals that we have now and all the future ones that will be losing their homes in the near future with all the growth that we're having, you know, whether it be turtles or ground owls or what have you. But I think that it's a big ask, but I think that perhaps on a large scale that could be very beneficial. The property that they have now is very valuable on the highway to something that perhaps could generate high-paying jobs and a commercial atmosphere that would be something that they could contribute and perhaps move into a new facility that is designed for the future with the help of some grants that perhaps we're receiving for all the wrong reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hello there, Gina Weiss, Palm Coast. This has been certainly a real educative experience. I'm so glad I came here tonight, and I understand where everybody is coming from here. And I just want to say, the thing that stands out in my mind the most is that $90,000 figure to feed, and there was a couple of other things that went up with that. One was $400,000, one was $200,000, but the $90,000 figure bothered me. That's supposed to go to take care of these animals. And this is where we need the help. We need the help to expand the shelter. We need funding, okay? And we need more of that $90,000 figure to turn into, I don't know, $2 million. This is the way I'm looking at it, okay? As for this lady here that she got up and she spoke about people not being able to afford to live here, she's right. She just touched upon something. That's why they're giving up their animals. This has to do with Flagler County and Palm Coast. We need to look at a lot of this funding and start helping people to be able to live here, to take care of pets also. And I never thought of it that way. And a lot of people do give up. They're living in their cars. They're living paycheck to paycheck. That's why a lot of these animals are being brought into the shelters. And this is such an enlightening experience. I'm glad I came here tonight. I think that everyone in here is a hero, everyone that got up to speak. And I want you to know I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
Lee Summergrad. I just want to point out, in addition to our shelter being over capacity, our local rescues are over capacity. I'm with a small breed rescue. We don't have enough foster homes. If we're asked to take a dog in, there are times we have to turn them down. I know I took my neighbor up to Smart to adopt a dog recently. Their shelter is so over capacity. One of their directors had about 8 to 10 little dogs greet us before we even saw that dog in her home. I saw today where Caroline Johnson was reaching out, asking for someone to foster, step up because she needed to take a dog in. I didn't see anybody volunteer. Our capacity for foster homes is also at capacity. So if you think you can bounce off of the local 501c3s, it's not going to work. We're full. So we're doing our best. I've had 5, 6 dogs at a time, and it's real tough. And I don't like to say no. And I don't want to say no. Sometimes my husband fights me on that, but I won't say no. But our local rescues are really at capacity also. So we're not a backup plan. So please don't take us as a backup plan because we can't be. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we do have some other items on the agenda. I don't see anybody else coming up for public comment. So at this point, we'll go ahead and close public comment. Last comments from the dais. Does anybody have any final comments? No. Commissioner Pennington?
I do. So I just think there's a lot of internal issues and back and forth. At a high level, we're sending tax dollars into the facility to perform a service. We need oversight. We have nonprofits we give to. We have liaisons on their board. We need that. And what I heard tonight is there's capacity issues and no immediate plan to address them. So I think that where we leave this is going forward, we have to think about that. We have to think about what are we going to do for the residents, their animals. I mean, there's people in hospitals, their animals have to go into shelters. There's no capacity here. There's no planning. There's no fundraising. And we owe it to the taxpayer to chart a way for maybe even a secondary small municipal shelter for dogs or something. So I don't think we're there tonight, but we have to work towards it. We're growing, and the one place that takes them in does not have a plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Final comments?
Just one last thing, Mr. Chair. And I just want to preface this by saying that the financial, the CPA firm that you use, I know that firm. I use them personally, have for many years. I also use them with my business. But you do need to correct the website because you don't have audited financials on the website. You have copies of tax returns from federal nonprofit tax returns, which is all well and good. And I'm not saying that there's any issues whatsoever, but legally that's not what is there. You have just a tax return. Maybe you do have prepared financial statements or audited financial statements, but those aren't there. So from a transparency standpoint, I really strongly urge you to fix that or fix the language on the website so that it's accurate.
Okay, yes, thank you. Commissioner Sullivan.
My problem right now is, so what's the next step? But I guess my question to you, Mr. Chairman, is what's the next step at this point?
Okay, good question.
Can I make a comment at this time? I would ask city staff with regard to the Imagine 2050 comprehensive plan, do we or could we discuss this issue within the comp plan? Could that be brought forward to city council while the comprehensive plan is being finished and finalized?
Sure, Mayor. We'll go back through and look at those goals, objectives, and policies and see how it relates to your discussion tonight.
Commissioner Hanson.
Yeah, I think the first step, and it looks like an easy step, is to put one of us on their board. So I think that would be something we could do very quickly.
And I think that was one of the yes, shaking heads. It has to go back to your board, but I think that is something that is definitely the message is pretty clear that from either one and can get incorporated into the upcoming renewal for 2025. As far as next steps, I think we each need to bring the discussion back to our administrators. For us, it's, we've got lots of pressing issues, so this just becomes another one of them that we've got to look at. But we can make some adjustments in our annual agreement and negotiate those with the board. I would say too, though, we've heard over the past month at least the back and forth between the different groups, and I hope tonight's meeting can kind of put a squash to some of those. We've heard both sides, and I think the point's been made. We've met today to again listen one more time and to try and incorporate some things that are the low-hanging fruit immediately, and then moving forward with a renewal in the contract coming up. I think the glaring issue is how we can address capacity. So we will that's a long-term issue. We will definitely take that back. And there's been some questions about impact fees and other ways to potentially fund it. So please come back and speak with us. I'm not shutting anybody out. I just really would like to hope that we can stop the accusations and the back and forth, because we've heard that. And I know the current staff has heard that, so hopefully there'll be some improvements, at least in that communication standpoint. But I think at that point, anything, Ms. Petito, that you wanted to add? Okay.
No, I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay.
Could I second?
Hanson?
Yeah, just second
Sure.
what you said. The naysayers out here don't help. I mean, they're doing a good job, the best job they can at the shelter, and they need help with donations and stuff. And if people are criticizing them constantly on websites and social media and stuff, it doesn't help. It doesn't help the problem. So I would caution that. Please don't do that. And the chairman said it very well. I just wanted to chip in my 2 cents on that. It doesn't help for you guys to criticize them constantly on the web and stuff. It doesn't help. Be part of the solution, not part of the problem, please. Thank you.
All right, so with that, we're going to go ahead and take a 5-minute recess. Thank you all for being here. If you want to hear the rest of our 2 exciting issues coming up, you're free to stick around. And get started. If everybody could clear the room, that's not going to be here for the remaining discussion. Okay.
There's the boss lady down there. He didn't say it. The animal control officer fired by the previous board. Only having control of the animal control officer. And she told me the update. She told you about.
Oh, no, I haven't heard. Okay.
Yeah. That's the part.
Gotcha.
I didn't get to go.
None of this is critical. You can go anytime.
Nobody else is here.
We cleared out the room. Yep. All right, if it's okay with the dais, we're going to skip to the law enforcement impact fee discussion. Ms. Pontieri's on a schedule and want to hit that one and allow her some time for that. So if we wanted to go to skip forward to the impact fee. Law enforcement impact fee discussion.
Okay, we'll go ahead and start with that one. When you said impact fee, I had the transportation up next. So looking at the law enforcement impact fees, as you know, our impact fee study came back and it was adopted in November of 2021. And not that I expect anybody to read everything on the screen, but just kind of giving you a summary of the basis of what that law enforcement impact fee is. And it defines a law enforcement system, meaning the buildings, vehicles, apparatus, capital equipment provided for county law enforcement that's used for calls for service. And then it just gives you a list of some of the permissible uses related to the spending of those funds. So looking at the request, there was a request that was made to county staff for consideration of the law enforcement impact fees to be applied to the contract between the sheriff's office and the city of Palm Coast to cover the cost of leased vehicles for 5 new deputies. The challenge with that is that leased vehicle payments don't qualify as a capital expenditure. It's outside of my authority, so it would have to come back to this board for consideration. If the board was inclined to purchase 5 vehicles, that would qualify. And when you look at the cost of those 5 vehicles, you're looking at $348,000. Just on a side note, we did not spend the impact fees to offset the vehicles for our 3 new deputies in this contract or upcoming budget. And as you may recall, we recently, actually, I think just completed a 5,000 square foot vehicle storage building behind the Sheriff's Operations Center at a cost of about $325,000. We didn't use the impact fees for that. Looking at what we've collected since the inception, many years, we had a moratorium on impact fees. With the new adoption of these impact fees, starting with the collection in fiscal year 22 to present, we collected a little over $719,000. With interest, as of today, we have $737,451. But the challenge is going to be based on the anticipated future projects that we have. Our CIP projects only fund the first year, and then we have a total look at 5 years, which will be part of your upcoming budget presentation or adoption. So we're looking already, we have the expansion of the 911 call center. This year, we added 4 911 dispatchers to the sheriff's budget that the county had added as part of it, along with the 3 additional deputies. There is a need for them to have expanded space within the EOC with the, it's kind of being coordinated in effort with the new Station 62, which will be the new Bunnell Station. It's moving fire administration out of the EOC, as well as co-locating with the existing Station 62. It'll free up space at the EOC. And talking to Jonathan Lord, when that time comes and they're able to vacate, that's why the timing of this is in fiscal year '27. We're able to take, right now they've got training room A and B. He's able to take a large portion of that, maybe it's half of one of those training rooms that adjoins or abuts the existing 911 call center, to actually expand that for the use of adding additional staff for expansion. Looking at the westward expansion in Palm Coast, anticipating those needs, we've got a cost in present value of about $7 million. That doesn't, the cost of construction is present value, but it doesn't include any land. So we're looking at a substation there that would end up being about 10,000 square feet. The Hammock substation expansion is listed on here. We had talked internally about whether or not the current location definitely needs to be expanded, but should it still be on Malacompa, or should we look for a parcel out on A1A, which is more conveniently located to the public? We talked about the need for the sheriff and the Marine unit having direct access to the intercoastal. Maybe it would make more sense for us to identify a property on the intercoastal side up in the Hammock area, where we could make a new substation for that Hammock area that could have access to the intercoastal, where they could house their boats. Currently, they keep them in the water, which becomes problematic, and you get barnacles and things like that, which, you know, ends up being additional challenges. We were looking at doing a find project, putting in a dedicated dock to house a boat at Herschel King as a potential stopgap right now, but there is a need to replace the Hammock substation and provide marine access to the intercoastal. When we built the existing Sheriff's Operations Center, we knew that there were going to be 2 additional phases. So one of them, and I may have these in the wrong order, but one is for a 10,000 square foot expansion. The other one's for a 20,000 square foot expansion of the facilities here. So those are programmed in there for the appropriate years of when we anticipate needing those. And then we've also internally had discussions about co-locating the sheriff's office with the fire department at a facility. With the new construction that we're building out at 305 and 100, we did dedicate one office there where a deputy could meet with a resident. But in looking at the future and that western expansion in the unincorporated and area of Bunnell, we're actually looking at the area of Cody's Corner and actually building a facility that would essentially be, maybe, I think it ended up being 7,000 square feet for a western substation that would be co-located with a fire station. So you may have 7,000 7,000 sheriff, law enforcement, and then you may have about 10,000, which encompasses the bays and the fire station, co-located out at property in Cody's Corner. So knowing that we have these anticipated projects in the future, we haven't tapped into those impact fees.
Okay. We're going to bring you to the dais knowing you have somewhere to be. I will have you start us off, and then you're free to go.
I appreciate that, and I'm sorry to kind of drop my comments and run.
That's the best way to do it.
Right. No, I promise. I'm willing to meet with county staff and obviously with anybody on the board to further discuss these. To start, I will say I look forward to raising the law enforcement impact fees when the time comes, because they need to be raised. I don't think that they're the proper amount to begin with. So as a policy, I do anticipate raising them. So hopefully we can help out with the items that are currently on the screen. The majority of the impact fees that Flagler County has collected have come from the city. We know that. It's a pass-through, obviously. We collect it from our new construction. It goes to the county. In addition to that, 44 or 45 cents of every one of our ad valorem dollars go to the county. So I understand these costs. Obviously, the impact fees themselves are not going to pay for these, but we also, our ad valorem monies, we only get 23 cents for each one of our dollars that's collected from our residents. That is a hard pill to swallow for my residents. I will tell you, 29 cents goes to the schools, 23 cents comes to the city itself, and 44 or 45 cents, I can't remember which one, goes to the county. So I recognize you all have your own expenses and your own services that you provide to us, and I can appreciate that. But when I look at policy, just from a very high level, it has been a policy that I have stuck to, that growth should pay for itself as much as possible. I can't not take that approach when it comes to law enforcement as well. So while I understand we did these calculations and said, based on what impact fees can pay for from a law enforcement perspective, it comes out to about that $87,000 mark. It hasn't been our chosen policy, the city, to lease cars rather than purchase them. That is a policy the Flagler County Sheriff's Office has chosen. And if they choose to continue to move forward in that manner, then that's obviously within their purview as to how they operate their budget. But I can't, for everything else, say that impact fees should pay for growth and things like property taxes or service fees for utilities and things like that we charge our residents, should pay for growth. No, impact fees should pay for growth. I can't take that approach on everything else and not take that approach for law enforcement. So that is the reason this year specifically, Flagler County Sheriff's Office came to us and said, we need these new deputies. It's going to be an XYZ amount of money. And my question immediately was, what in this can impact fees pay for? I received a response, and based on that, I asked my board to reduce the amount that we would award to the Flagler County Sheriff's Office by the amount that the impact fees should be paying for, or can by law pay for. And that's how we came up with that calculation. I don't know how to better do it in the future. I am open to suggestion and discussion as to that. But I will continue to have the stance and the policy that whatever impact fees can by law pay for from our contract with the Sheriff's Office, it should. How the Sheriff's Office decides to spend that money, or how the county decides to spend the impact fees, obviously those policy decisions are within your purview. But from our policy perspective, I think that we need to remain consistent and continue to do that analysis. What from the contract, from the ask, so to speak, should impact fees be paying for? And it's going to continue to be my policy and my suggestion and my push for at least 2 more years. So again, I look for suggestions and discussion, as to how we can better approach this. But I can't take a policy stance on everything else and not take it on this. So with that, I do apologize. I promise I'm happy to meet with anybody about this, and I'm sorry to drop this on you. I will listen to the rest of the meeting, and I look forward to hopefully coming up with a resolution that can accommodate what everybody needs. I know we have a lot of costs coming up, and I want to help the county and the sheriff take care of those, but that's my stance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here tonight.
And thank you for letting me speak on this topic.
Yep.
And thank you, Chair, for the meeting.
Thank you. Drive safe. So we'll open it up for discussion. Commissioner Sullivan? Your mic? Is your mic on?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I go back to the slide, this slide, and I'm trying to, is the Sheriff's Office leases cars, they don't buy them. And that is a policy that exists, I think. And it's hard for me to find a place here that would work. Now, lots of things can work, even though, the rules don't seem to in this case. But I don't know if it's a legal matter or just simply these are the way it's laid out. And so my problem is that a pressing need that the city, say the city council has voted on to say we think we should get this money out of impact fees for the cost of leasing police vehicles. And right now, I don't agree with that.
Okay. Anybody else? Crickets? I just, I'll jump in and just say that, one, it does mean having the sheriff's office change their protocols right now. But the second is I don't want to lose sight of the big window, right? And that is facilities. The facilities are the big ticket item and it should be the focus of what we have to plan for coming up. It's instead of a dollar here, a nickel there in order to make a budget fit, I really want us to focus on the big issues that are going to be facing us, which are capacity issues based on growth, and that's what the impact fees are supposed to be for. It's our needs are huge as laid out, and the impact fees are critical to meeting those capacity issues. Anybody else? Mayor? We haven't been privy in your discussion, so.
Commissioner Sullivan was sort of asking a question. I have a habit of getting those sort of questions here. I think Commissioner Hanson was last time I was here. Now it's Commissioner Sullivan. So I'll defer to our city manager for a moment, because I certainly can't speak on behalf of the city council on an issue that has not been thoroughly discussed on our dais. And I've just lost my cohort here. So city manager, can you advise what conversation has been shared with city council up to this point in time on this issue?
Sure, Mayor. During your budget process, the City Council did give consensus to reduce the ask from the Sheriff's Office by $87,000 and make a request to the county for those services to be covered under impact fees, since we do collect for Flagler County and we are a pass-through. I think last year, or collective to date, was around $771,000. So it's using those monies for growth to pay for growth, as Ms. Pontieri mentioned. We've done our budget process by the direction from City Council and reduced that $87,000. So I would need some direction from City Council on next steps.
So, Commissioner, just to kind of tie it up, is there a question you'd like me to take back to the city council? I mean, I'm happy to do that, but I think that would be the right protocol.
Well, I mean, maybe I'll say what I think, but I think we're at the point where you're not getting an immediate yes. We're willing to do that at the county level. So I don't know where we are. I go back to our county administrator to say, so where are we on this? Have you, who makes the final decision on this?
It's going to be the Board of County Commission
Right.
to decide.
And I've kind of expressed our
We get
opinion.
it's 5-1 here, so I'm kind of by myself.
No, I mean, that's a,
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, is that we've got some big ticket items coming up, and they are exactly in the window of what the impact fee is supposed to be used for. So I would recommend that we not change the rules about what we can use the impact fees for, and try to focus on these big ticket items that are coming down the pike.
Commissioner O'Brien?
I don't think, I can't defend her, but I don't think the councilwoman was asking to change the rules. I think she just is interpreting it to say that, that those vehicles would be considered to be capital costs, which are on this list here. But having said that, I agree with the other part of the discussion, which is we have a lot of other pressing needs, and I think the small numbers are not really what the intention is. It would be to fund the bigger, larger expenses, like expansion of the 911 system, which benefits the entire county, and other items that the administrator laid out. So,
Pengton, did you want to add anything?
No, I think he's right. So on the one hand, she's not wrong. It does fall under, as a permissible use. I think it's number 11 there. And I think the higher question is, what do you do when a municipality would like access to their portion of the impact fee, or it's just a discussion on the board. But we do have a lot of capital projects coming up. So it's just purely in the pleasure of the board, what they want to do with this fee.
I mean, it does seem the lease versus buy thing is an issue also in the
Well, but
discussion.
it's also, go back to the next page where
Mhm.
you broke it out. I mean, there were permissible uses to come to the 87,000, correct?
The way to,
Lease vehicle payments would not qualify as a capital expenditure.
you'd have to buy all 5, which would take 348,000.
Right. And I think what she said though was, were you able to find costs in the that were permissible or no? Because she said
It's for capital expenditures only, so it's to acquire capital. Leasing a vehicle is not considered, so that's why you'd have to purchase it. So it's not a dollar for dollar value that you're getting back. Yes, it would reduce 87,000 out of their contract this year, but you're going to be taking 348,000 out of the impact fee fund.
right.
And if I could just ask a question for clarification, does a decision on this question, and Commissioner Sullivan, to your question specifically, set precedent for the way these funds are defined or allocated in the future in any way, or is this a one and done decision?
Well, I don't know. I don't want to answer for you other than say
You
this should
understand
be,
what I'm asking?
This should be a philosophical.
Yeah.
It should be set as a mission and a vision for how we deal with impact fees, and
Right.
that would settle that. It shouldn't be coming back as a question.
Well, that's what
each
I'm
year.
asking. So this is a much bigger topic.
Right.
Okay.
And I will, let me finish,
Yeah,
because I have a couple of comments. And I think, right, the urgency, unfortunately, there's an urgency because y'all are at the tail end of your budget session.
October, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the September public notices. So, one, I don't know if we have articulated the county's mission and vision for impact fees adequately to help your council people. Maybe it's helpful if we go back and present the capital plan and show your council people how, what we're up against as far as big items coming up, and that these impact fees, if we can come to a consensus that we're working toward facility upgrades, we shouldn't be spending impact fees on depreciating assets. So if you're going to add and spend impact fees on cars, it's not a wise choice. Those are depreciating assets. The facilities are not depreciating assets, and I think that should be the focus of what we're looking at. What do we want to come together as and focus on where these go, so that we don't get into this budgetary back and forth each year. And if we need to come to council to do that, to present, what we've summarized here today, would I think might be helpful, so that that the choice comes back to them, so that we don't look like Big Brother telling them no, but they can make a choice now that they've got some additional information.
Well, if I may, it's a further collaborative step, which we went through with the 5-year plan with regard to the sheriff's budget. This is just another offshoot of that. So yes, we should probably finalize a decision philosophically on this, so we don't have to address this each budget season. I would wholeheartedly agree to do that. I think the city manager and the county administrator together can share sufficient information, and it can get to the city council quickly, so that we can get to an answer. I don't think a presentation, a whole agenda performance needs to take place. I think it could be done judiciously in a short period of time. But again, I can't speak for the rest of city council. I just can't do that.
So for us, is consensus to give the administrator some more ability to give that information to the city council if they need to?
Yeah, I would say provide information.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any indication here of an agreement.
Right.
That whatever. Okay.
Is it safe to say that we're in consensus on these being utilized for facilities?
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
which mild pushback do depreciate, but at a much slower rate than cars.
Well, if we're doing it right, they should appreciate
Property, a building,
buildings and a property.
maybe
don't
in
know.
market value, not in useful life.
I certainly appreciate your efforts.
Okay. Yep. We'll move on to the middle item, which is traffic on State Road 100 and Seminole Woods Boulevard. You can thank me for this discussion.
It stinks. It's terrible. That's all we need to know.
Okay, so moving on to State Road 100 traffic concerns. This is a look at the current project underway with FDOT. Project started spring of '24. Estimated completion should be summer of '25. This is for the resurfacing of State Road 100 between North Palmetto Street and Bunnell to Old Kings Road South in Palm Coast, is how they had it listed, but I don't know if the city actually extends there. I know some of the addresses say Palm Coast, some say Flagler Beach. But it's for the road resurfacing, and then they've got some other scheduled improvements, which include constructing the 6-foot wide sidewalk, closing the gap where it doesn't exist currently. I know we've seen that right outside of our complex here. They're also looking at upgrading the traffic signals at 2 of the intersections. Pretty sure that some of that work's already been done. And then they're looking at installing some wrong-way driving devices at the interchange of I-95. And then what's also included as part of this project, as listed in the project description as other improvements, they will be adding 2 turn lanes. So they will be widening to allow for right turn lanes from 100 going south onto Seminole Woods, as well as on the northbound or taking a right into Town Center Boulevard. We did reach out to them to ask them about that project because it's not really tied to the Cornerstone project. The project manager finally got back to us today, and he did state that at the moment they have not begun widening the construction down at Seminole Woods eastbound. Their efforts are currently focused on the I-95 widening and drainage to the west. Since work has not yet begun in this area, he does not have an estimated time for completion. He further stated that the work in the area just west of the Cornerstone project is actually being done by permit for the BJ's property. So he really didn't have a time frame. Right now, the contractor has control of the lights along this stretch of the road through the project until they complete it, until they'll hand it back over to the City of Palm Coast. Then we wanted to talk about some new and anticipated development along State Road 100. As I mentioned, Cornerstone at Seminole Woods Shopping Center. It's that 32-acre parcel that is anchored by BJ's Warehouse with a fueling station. They've also got a Miller's Ale House that recently opened up. Longhorn Steakhouse is estimated, I think it might be a month or 2 out. I think I saw that we have a Chase Bank coming. On their plan, it had a chicken restaurant. I'm not sure which chicken restaurant. It hasn't been made public yet. And then there's one other remaining parcel. This project came in through Flagler County because it's in the unincorporated area, knowing that it would be annexed into City of Palm Coast. So then when we talk about transportation impact fees, right now, what we brought in through impact fees, and I have it broken out by each one of the entities so far, it's right around $276,000. Staff between Flagler County and the City of Palm Coast had been discussing the drafting of an interlocal agreement that we would have to take back for both boards' consideration, which would require Flagler County to hand over impact fees collected for that Cornerstone project. And what we had in mind was that it would go for specific intersection improvements at the intersection of State Road 100 and Seminole Woods. From what I understand, Palmco staff had come up with a project that would actually open or widen that intersection, I think adding some additional turn lanes along that area as you approach State Road 100. And then similarly, on the county side, internally, staff had been discussing the possibility of a similar arrangement with the city. I don't know if it had been brought to the city formally, but talking about the either handing over traffic impact fees for projects along Colbert Lane or Roberts Road due to potential similar traffic-related issues that will result from commercial and residential construction along those two roads. This is a list of just some of the current active applications or approved development in that area. It may not include some of the other projects that may be through site review or maybe haven't come through. I know that there was some land clearing for, I don't know how to pronounce it, but I think it's Meritage Homes. There may be another project, the Preserve at Palm Coast LLC, and then Lighthouse Palm Coast Holdings. There's also commercial development at the corner of Roberts Road and Colbert Lane that looks like it's nearing completion. But that's really it. That's as far as we got.
All right. I know a lot of this started with the road work that was happening on 100. We're all getting different complaints of the traffic because the light signals are being controlled by the contractor. It's all a combination of worst possible scenarios right now with BJ's opening and everything. There was the turn lane project, which I originally thought was separate, but was part of this and wanted to try to facilitate an expedited completion of the turn lanes with the 100, but working with DOT is, they've got their program and it's very hard to change that program. So the entire project is due to be complete in the spring of 2025, and that's the best we got. Commissioner Sullivan.
Yeah, I just, if we go back a couple of, where you see the 100 Seminole intersection there, and, well, actually the BJ's, really. The one that I have the problem with is there's no light, where it says Main Street, left-hand turn off 100. That's between Seminole and the major entrance into BJ's. There's no light there, and there's a very small turn lane. And then that traffic cuts across. I can see very easily that people will, if they see delays either way, will try to use that left-hand turn to get in to the thing. And that you'll be in to back the traffic up from that Main Street left-hand turn back into the intersection at Seminole Boulevard. I know you say, oh, that one, it'll happen.
Well, if they put an island out there or something, which they've done at other intersections where it's only possible to go right, then it's not a problem.
Well, it's only possible to go to left. Yeah, they can't, the only way they.
Right.
No, they come, I'm going west on 100. It's a left-hand turn.
Turn in, yeah.
Yeah, across traffic with no light on the other side.
Right.
So I just, to me, was just a compromise they must have made to the people who are building the commercial establishments there to get people into, the steakhouse or the ale house, that kind of thing. I
Well,
brought
maybe
it
we-
up. That was one of the reasons I brought that one up. That's all.
And again, my solution is the same one. If we could get FDOT to just put an island there where you can't turn in at that point. You could turn, if you're going east, you can turn in. If you
And
come
that
out,
may
you
ultimately
turn
be one of the resolutions, but
Yeah.
But
I mean,
right now, there is an
I agree
island.
with Commissioner Sullivan. That's going to be a dangerous left turn.
Yeah, because it's got to
Although-
cross the traffic.
Yeah, but it'll be metered by the light. When the light turns red, they'll be able to turn left in. But
Which
I
light?
think it was important, Joe, for me anyway, to get, and hopefully this project and the graphics will get out to the public that additional turn lane is coming to be able to free up the backlog of traffic that's going south on Seminole Woods. Because right now that is the genesis for the backlog in front of BJ's is there's no ability to freely turn right. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that traffic's backing up. I guess the impact fee thing is another question
yeah, that was just
ultimately
something I
that
brought
we'll have
up.
to continue the discussion on. I would say my suggestion for the impact fees donation is to put two left-hand turn lanes from the east turning onto Seminole Woods. I think the backlog becomes problematic with just one turn lane there.
So, Mr. Chair, so the engineering for this project goes back, I don't know, years or decades, I don't know which.
For the 100?
Yeah. So the question becomes, how do the thoughts here on the dais tonight get to engineering to actually make these, because, the work is in progress, so obviously it's urgent. None of these things happen quick, as we all know. So how would the engineering actually get created and delivered? Because certainly DOT isn't going to take this upon themselves to do it. I'm sure not. It's just a question. I don't know what the process could be.
Well, that could be for staff, for your staff, if they're getting our impact fees, then how would they apply those? Is it going to be a design that goes out to a firm? I don't know what the improvements are. You may have not had the discussion about any potential improvements yet.
Has the transfer of that engineering responsibility come over already, or where are we with that?
I think we can have Mr. DiLorenzo explain what his intended
Okay.
use was for that
Absolutely.
intersection, probably help.
Chair Dance, I want to just confirm, when you said two turns, that would be westbound State Road 100 onto Seminole Woods, is that what you were suggesting for two turning lanes?
Right.
Okay, DOT's current solution in this project is to lengthen the queuing.
So a longer queue instead of a double queue.
Correct. That is their current that's in this current project. We have not done any design work for Seminole Woods eastbound or westbound. I think if you look at the intersection, you'd likely add a eastbound turn lane, a right turn lane, and an additional westbound turn lane to clear traffic off of Seminole Woods. That'd be probably the best plan there. I think we've had our previous traffic engineer kind of take a look at it, but nothing significant beyond, certainly not into design work. And I think the mayor has an update on the turning lanes as well for when construction would occur.
So I just got some communication. I attended TPO this morning and asked for an update, and the update is those turning lanes would begin construction in November. But that's just a communication. I'm not sure it's official, but we'll certainly share the communique with staff and with county administrators so she can pass that out. But it was November.
I had just one comment.
Yes, sir.
Is there any progress on having the gas station allow an entrance over onto Seminole going south so they don't have to come back out to 100?
How have you done with that?
I don't know. I don't work those. Any
You have to
progress
leave
on
him
that?
Well, we asked that question last time, and the answer was no.
Right, I agree.
Yeah.
I just bring it up as one of those things. I guess it's not going to happen. Okay.
All right. Any other comments for staff? All right. Public comment. Does anybody want to have public comment on this item? I forgot public comment on the last one, so.
Well, forget it. It's gone.
Weiss, Palm Coast. To Mr. DiLorenzo, I guess this is more in his forte. When you're going west and turning onto Belterre, going past Tractor Supply and Culver's, what about extending that turning lane? Because the traffic is backed up to about like a 15 to 20-minute wait. Okay? I've experienced it. A lot of people are experiencing it the same way. And you're right, Mr. Sullivan, about that that turning into, I think it's going to be a Chick-fil-A, in fact, okay?
Whatever. It's
Very, very dangerous. I mean, it reminds me of that airport yellow light where they're turning into that street over there where there was like a very bad accident going back many years. Whatever you do not put a yellow light there. Because I see cars, it's like I'm actually cringing in my seat of my car, trying to get across with traffic coming down from the west. It's like they're playing chicken, all right? But I really want to address that turning lane. It's off of State Road 100 going west, turning towards Tractor Supply. That's where you definitely need an extension. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Julia Puglisi, Pampos. This is a comment only about this issue, or can I comment on the issue prior to this regarding the impact fees?
You can, but I did not open it up for public
No,
comment.
you
so if
didn't.
Yeah, my apologies. So if you want to talk about the sheriff's, the law enforcement impact fee, have at it.
This is important. The sheriff needs everything they need to keep us safe. Now, I'm going to stress one more thing to the county. From our ad valorem taxes, we pay the county on every dollar 45 cents. We pay our city only 23 cents and 29, 20, whatever to the school, and then everybody else. But you see the discrepancy. We Palm Coasters are paying to the county almost double in our ad valorems than what we pay to the city. So I totally agree with Councilwoman Ponchieri that we need to start having a little bit of those impact fees that you collect mainly from constructions that took place within Palm Coast to share on a more fair way with Palm Coasters. Because the city of Palm Coast has to do all our services except the sheriff and the emergency service and the court and the property appraiser, and those are almost self-sufficient because they collect fees for the services too. But you know what? We pay a lot to the county, and we need to have a little bit more of a fair share. So I am all for what Councilwoman Ponchieri is requesting, those $87,000, because are important to our city budget. And last year, or this year, better say, and last year too, this year, I'm getting 3 times the tax increase from the county on my ad valorem that I'm getting from the city of Palm Coast. So, you know, our taxes to the county keep on multiplying, and our city that gives us all the services does not get enough money for all the services we need. So you need to be a little bit, I'm asking you to be a little bit more understanding about finances and how you are being benefited. Okay, now regarding the Route 100, I get stuck here in 100 going west for a long time when I need to turn into Belter South. Now, Mr. Di Lorenzo just said that the FDOT have planned also just other than 2 turn lanes, like it should be like Mr. Sullivan says, because it's going to be dangerous there, that the FDOT have instead approved a longer turn lane. I don't think that's going to be sufficient the way the Palm Coast is growing and all the traffic that BJ is bringing. So I think we here, whether with Mr. Alfing, that is goes to the TPO, or the county with all your authority needs to talk to the FDOT and get the proper turn lanes for 100. Thank you.
Thank you.
when they're done.
Commissioner Sullivan, did you?
Yeah, I just want to, the original graphics we looked at for law enforcement, the traffic on State Road, was that the impact fees, if they go to the city, would have to be used for improvements along 100. Is that, are we agreeing to that or not agreeing to that? Or is that an issue we're going to discuss later?
That was our intent. I don't know if we have to formalize that. What's the process for that?
It would come back to you for consideration as an ILA.
Okay. So, and we're not we're agreeing that that's the proper route for that decision to an ILA, which will.
It would be
agree with
spelled
the
out in
city
the
at some point. So
ILA.
that'll happen at some point. Okay.
And in addition to the other discussion about Colbert, I think all of that
Colbert
needs
also,
to be
right. Yeah.
formalized in some.
Right. Okay. That's all.
I'm sorry, but the Colbert Lane, one thing I forgot to mention was the widening of Colbert Lane is in our 5-year work plan with FDOT. So we have an upcoming project potentially to do the widening of Colbert. It is listed as item 20 on our FDOT capital plan.
Okay. Commissioner Hanson, did you have?
Yeah, it's just, we're doing a bad job of educating, and Ms. Puglisi doesn't have all the data, but we provide all the services to Palm Coast. Palm Coast doesn't provide much at all. We do all the services. And that's why it costs so much. So.
Comments on this side? On 100, anything else? Okay. I think, and I would just say if you go to our transparency page and enter in your address, you'll be able to see where your county tax money goes. You glanced really quickly over some really high dollar items. The tax collector is fee-based. The others are significant parts of our budget. The sheriff's operation, the jail, those are significant portions of the budget in addition to the other constitutional officers and the countywide fire rescue. So please, happy to sit down with you and go over all that so you have a better understanding of where the county taxes are going. All right. Any other final comments?
None.
Motion?
I move we adjourn.
All right. A motion and a second.